In the Vatican palaces, Advent doesn't end the wait, it prolongs it. It's not just the liturgical anticipation of Christmas, but a more concrete, almost political anticipation that looks forward to the first days of January. On January 7th and 8th, Leo the XIV convened an extraordinary consistory, a gesture formerly envisaged by canon law, but one that, in its timing and manner, takes on a significance that goes far beyond institutional routine. It is the first true collegial test of the new pontificate, and it is an event that comes loaded with implicit meaning. The convocation was issued on November 7th, signed by the Dean of the College of Cardinals, Giovanni Battista Re. No justification was given, no indication of the topics. A silence that surprised many observers accustomed to more detailed communications. But silence, in the Vatican, is rarely empty. Rather, it's a space that prepares words. And it's precisely this space that Leo the XIV has decided to fill with a personal letter. A letter he's calling Christmas, destined to reach all the cardinals around the world in the next few hours. Not just a simple message of good wishes, but a genuine outline of work, an agenda, an indication of method and priorities. The Pope writes to the cardinals as necessary interlocutors, as collaborators to be refocused. A gesture that already marks a discontinuity with previous years, when the role of the Sacred College had appeared progressively diminished, replaced by restricted circles and parallel bodies. The reference is implicit, but evident. The variable geometry government of the Bergoglian pontificate, the C9, which later became the C6, and a collegiality more evoked than practiced. Leo the XIV seems to want to reverse that trend. He had already stated this openly 2 days after his election, in his first meeting with the cardinals, promising to listen and engage in regular dialogue. Now, 6 months later, that promise is taking concrete form, and it does so by asking the cardinals to prepare, to study, and to return to key texts from the previous pontificate, Evangelii Gaudium and Predicate Evangelium, 2 documents that define a vision of the Church and a reform of the Curia already implemented, but which are now being brought back to the table as an object of shared reflection. This is not a minor detail. Asking to reread those texts means acknowledging that the relationship between the Roman Curia and the government of the Universal Church remains an open issue. It also means admitting that some choices, although formally in force, have not exhausted the ecclesial debate. But the Pope's letter doesn't stop there. Alongside synodality, a symbolic word of the Francis era, Leo XIV introduces a term that orients its meaning: communion. It is in this light that the most delicate part of the announced agenda must be interpreted: the liturgical question. The liturgy is not just one theme among others. It is the place where theology becomes gesture, where ecclesiology becomes flesh, where the idea of the Church manifests itself without mediation. It is not surprising, therefore, that in recent years it has become the main battleground between different sensibilities. Since 2021, with the promulgation of Traditionis custodes, the fracture has become visible, at times harsh. The ancient Roman rite, the so-called Tridentine Mass, has become the symbol of a deeper tension which concerns not only the language or the rubrics, but the relationship with tradition, with the Second Vatican Council, with authority. Il giornale dit, in its article by Nico Spontoni, clearly speaks of the liturgical question as one of the themes mentioned in the Pope's letter. No undue anticipation is provided, nor are any already decided developments announced. But the very fact that the liturgy is explicitly included in the agenda of an extraordinary consistory is significant news, and even more so when considering the context. The faithful attached to the ancient rite are not a marginal minority. In many dioceses, they are growing, often young, often fully in communion with Rome, and avowedly faithful to the Second Vatican Council, while still wishing to continue celebrating according to the pre-reform Missal. This is where the Tridentine Mass returns to center stage, not as nostalgia, but as an unresolved ecclesial issue. The January consistory could become an opportunity to confront the cardinals with this reality, paving the way for a dialogue that is not ideological, but simultaneously pastoral and theological. What approach should we adopt toward these believers? Should we continue along the restrictive path established in recent years? Or should we seek a path that combines authority and reconciliation? These are not abstract questions. These are questions that touch on the concrete life of parishes, seminaries, and religious communities. The fact that Leo XIV entrusted this issue to collegial discussion speaks volumes about his governing style. Not a decision imposed from above, not a sudden motu proprio, but a shared discernment. This doesn't mean the answer will be the one traditionalists expect, but it does mean the question isn't being dismissed or relegated to the margins. The Eucharistic liturgy, with all its symbolic significance, is recognized as a test of ecclesial unity. In this sense, the January consistory takes on a significance that goes beyond the 2 days of work. It is a litmus test of the new direction. On the one hand, the desire to reclaim the role of cardinals as principal collaborators in the governance of the universal church. On the other hand, the awareness that some wounds left open over the years cannot simply be filed away. The Tridentine Mass is one of these. Not the only one, but certainly one of the most visible. In the expectant silence preceding January 7th, one thing is already clear. The liturgy is no longer an evadable topic. It has returned to center stage, not by choice of a vocal minority, but by the force of facts. And the fact that Leo the Fourteenth recognized it, including it in the agenda of his first great consistory, marks a step that can hardly be ignored. The game is on, and it will be played once again on the altar. What do you think of this consistory? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.